Hello, and thank you very much, everybody, for joining us so early in the morning. My name is Kirsty McHugh, and I'm Chief Executive of the Mayor's Fund for London. Now, I have thankfully not got to do any heavy lifting today. I often chair events like this, but I'm delighted to say that you just get 2 or 3 minutes of me introducing the Mayor's Fund for London, explaining why we're doing this, and then handing over to your chair for the next hour. So, Mayor's Fund for London, very briefly, we are an independent charity. The Mayor is patron, but doesn't control us. Independent board of trustees, and we are focused on social mobility in the capital for children and young people. We support about 40,000 young people every single year. And in particular, we're interested in getting them into great jobs and careers. Now, you might look at me and say there's a million vacancies out there. Why is there an issue? But we really are very serious about levelling up. And the built environment for us is a sector which has so many opportunities, and we want to make sure that they are open to young Londoners regardless of their background. We look at things through a socio-economic lens, but clearly in London there's a correlation with ethnicity as well, and I know many of you are interested in the diversity and inclusion agenda. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to the editor of the State's Gazette, and I'm really looking forward to a great debate this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Hello, my name is Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London. I'm delighted to talk to you this morning about Firm Foundations, a great campaign by the Mayor's Fund for London, which we're working on in close collaboration with many of you. This campaign is not only an opportunity to help transform the life chances of thousands of young Londoners, but help us create a stronger and more inclusive built environment industry. As Mayor, I'm determined to put young Londoners at the heart of our recovery efforts as we seek to rebuild after the pandemic as a better, more equal city. And at the heart of the Firm Foundations campaign is the belief that every young person deserves to have the opportunities to reach their potential. So I urge you to all get behind the campaign, to spread the word, and to sign up to the Diversity Pledge. I look forward to working with you in the months and years ahead, and to seeing many more young Londoners from many different backgrounds flourishing within our vitally important built environment industry. Thank you, and I hope you have a great event.
Hello everyone, and thank you Kirsty, thank you Mr Mayor for that message of support, and thank you to the Mayor's Fund for London for inviting me to host this morning's session with you. So we are here until 10 o'clock and we're going to be, I hope, putting the world to right and making sure that we are inspiring, encouraging and really galvanising this industry into action to tackle inequality and help bring the very many fantastic young people I know that there are out there in London that should be getting into the built environment. So we have quite a packed morning for you, a couple of keynote speeches coming up, and then I get to host a very, very talented panel of experts to really get to the nub of the issue that we know is out there, and hopefully come up with some solutions. But you don't want to hear too much from me. Of course, we want to get straight into it. So I'm going to now pass over and let you watch this very wonderful video from the very wonderful Geeta Nanda.
Hello, I'm Geeta Nanda, Chief Executive of Metropolitan Thames Valley Housing and Chair of the G15, London's largest housing associations. I'm really sorry that I can't be there today, but I'm really pleased that the G15 are founding partners of the Mayor's Firm Foundations campaign. It's really important to me. It's brilliant to see so many organisations across the built environment coming together and taking really meaningful action to address issues of diversity and inclusion within the sector. Collectively, G15 provide homes for 1 in 10 Londoners, and we're the largest provider of affordable housing in London. We manage or own over 600,000 homes across the country, and our scale means that every one of our members contributes to London's diverse and vibrant communities. I have seen firsthand how we make better decisions when we reflect the diverse communities that we serve at all levels. When our residents and colleagues see themselves represented through the different levels of our organisation, it really builds trust, and it changes conversations, and it empowers people to seek change themselves. As lockdown was introduced last year, the connections we have built with our residents and local communities was so very important. It made sure that people received the support that they needed really quickly. I firmly believe that our response to the pandemic was more effective because many of our colleagues share a lived experience with the people in the communities where we work. The Firm Foundations campaign also strongly reflects the values of the organisation that I lead, Metropolitan Thames Valley Housing Association. Metropolitan Thames Valley was established in the 1950s with the purpose of providing affordable, good quality homes to members of the Windrush generation. 70 years later, our aim of ensuring that everyone has a home and the chance to live well is still the same. The last 18 months has seen moments of hugely significant public discussion around the discrimination and structural inequality that exists. From the deeply personal and challenging conversations that I have had within my own organisation following the murder of George Floyd, to the condemnation that followed the racial abuse of England's football team this summer. However, despite these crucial conversations and welcomed attention to the issues of equality and diversity and inclusion, as the results of the Estate Gazette's second annual Race, Diversity in Real Estate survey show, there is so much that still needs to be done. With more than 80% of respondents feeling that racism was still an issue in the real estate sector. That's a huge number. 3/4 have experienced racism themselves, and that just shows that there's a really clear and serious problem that we have. We also know that minority ethnic colleagues and those from low-income backgrounds in the housing sector and beyond are often underrepresented in those senior leadership positions. This is why G15 are so pleased to be founding members of Firm Foundations. The collaboration and the action-focused aims of Firm Foundation Diversity Pledge will encourage signatories to really embrace outreach, recruitment and progression practices, driving diverse and inclusive working cultures. This initiative has the potential to allow young Londoners from diverse socio-economic and multi-ethnic backgrounds to flourish and create a stronger and much more inclusive built environment industry in the process. If we are really serious about breaking that glass ceiling, and that's what holds people back, then we have to start by building firm foundations. Sorry once again that I can't be there today, but I'm really pleased that the G15 have been involved with this initiative right from the start. I'm really looking forward to working together to achieve really meaningful change this time within the whole built environment industry. Thank you.
Morning everyone. I'm hoping that was an introduction from Sam. It's really great to be here in the being here, not really being here weird world of the new reality. Who would have thought that we would be at a conference with someone in an office, someone on pre-record and me sat in the back bedroom having a chat. But it's really great to be here. I'm Nick Walkley, now Principal and President for Strategic Advisory at Avison Young. and previously Chief Executive of Homes England. And I think importantly for this conversation, I was also Chief Executive of the London Borough of Haringey, one of the most diverse places in Britain. And I'm hugely privileged to be speaking to you this morning on this subject, and with Avison Young becoming proud supporters and active members of Firm Foundations. This is such an important campaign, not just for the sector, but for London as a whole. And why do I say that? Well, of course, I think everybody who's sat here has a sense that there's a real moral urgency about improving representation in the built environment sector. It's simply not acceptable for us to be delivering buildings, refurb, changing places, and thereby changing communities without accurately reflecting and promoting the views of those people that we work with. How can it be that as diverse businesses seek to become occupiers across the city, that they face into a largely white, largely male sector who have little chance of genuinely reflecting their needs and their opportunities? So for me, this is at one hand a moral issue, but another it's a straightforward business issue. We must gather all of the talents that we can around us if we're going to solve some of the profound problems that we face in the future. Crikey, if we can't have a diverse, creative workforce, what chance have we of dealing with issues of climate change, of the profound disruption that's coming to all of our lives in the coming decades? This is the easy stuff. We need all of the talents, and therefore we need to go at this with gusto. And it's easy for me to say that, but actually just this week I was in Birmingham. Other cities are available, where I've been asked by one of our apprentices to come and talk to them about the work they were doing to complete a dissertation. And of course, a more junior member of staff, I'm this sort of chap who's been parachuted into the organisation. There was a degree of nervousness to begin with as we sat around the coffee table in the Birmingham office. But actually, what I learnt as I reflected on that conversation was that a different experience, a young woman of colour from Birmingham who had a very different life experience to me, was able to provide insight, reflection, and really challenging views about the future of the city, about who it was for, and therefore what would happen to buildings in a smart and capable way, which caused me to, I don't know how many people do this, but get the notebook out and just start taking notes myself. We shouldn't view diversity and inclusion as being some sort of patriarchal one-way process. This is a genuine opportunity to learn and to grow and to change the nature of the sector and of places for the better. I'm not telling the name of the young woman, A, because she'd be deeply embarrassed, and B, because other employers are not nicking that piece of talent. So I'm a huge supporter of Firm Foundations, though, not because of its high purpose, but actually because it's about action. And my message today is that everyone in the room needs to go back to their organisations, not just feeling good about having participated, but actually begun to think about what the practical, pragmatic steps everybody can take to increase the inclusiveness of the sector. And of course, I've just referred to asking searching questions about how many apprentices have we got? How much of our recruitment could we be doing at a level that ensures we get a more diverse set of entrants? Are there things we can do to ask serious questions about, is a degree really necessary? Are we looking for the perfect match, or somebody who just fits comfortably with our current culture? Because if we ask those questions, I think we will find there is talent out there that we're missing. And likewise, asking questions which I think the pandemic have really forced on us about work-life balance, about the extent to which the 9 to 5 really is a fairly meaningless construct, and that there is talent out there that just can't pitch up for all sorts of reasons to the office at 10:30 in the morning metronomically, but will deliver spectacular outcomes. And I think it's down to all employers to reflect on how we gather talent to get the right outcomes, rather than just fit to the patterns that we've had in the past. And I think particularly for HR teams and for recruitment teams, we should be asking more, not just please give us the tokenistic BAME candidate, but actually, what's the pool we're looking in? Are we simply trading the same mainly white talent back and forth across the city? Are we simply going to the same technical colleges? Are there more we can do in partnership together? Because this is a huge sector and a vast part of the UK economy. And we've shown time and again that when we focus into issues, we can move mountains. I think we must now do it on exactly these issues. So a huge thanks to the Mayor's Fund for launching this campaign. We will be enthusiastic supporters. Huge thanks as well to Sam and the team at Estates Gazette. This is a really uncomfortable space for the sector. I read, I have to say, with horror, but no degree of a fair degree of immediate acceptance, the recent diversity survey. We need to pay attention to these things. They should be nailed to the wall of every chief executive. There should be metrics for all of us at senior levels that determine our bonuses, that determine our career progression. And I want to finish just to say, look, things can change. Not just that young woman in Birmingham who's forced me to think again about one of the major schemes we're involved in. But if you look at other organisations, let's have a big shout out to some further work the GLA has supported and the Mayor has supported with public practice and the brilliant Pooja Agrawal. It is possible for new organisations to deliver talent into the sector that will make a difference for the long term. And we should all be getting behind other organisations like that and using this platform to really support what I think is one of the most important challenges facing the sector. And as I said, if we can't get diverse voices, how do we get to the solutions we're going to need for some of the other profound challenges that face us? So it's a real privilege to be here, and I'm looking forward to the debate, Sam.
I've loved the built environment since I was young. My tutor used to have blueprints all over his desk, and I used to be fascinated by them. You know, you have a vision and you see it come to life.
I went to school just not too far from here, actually, but I didn't speak English. Everyone looked different, and I just didn't have anyone that was part of the property industry anywhere near me.
When I first joined, I was about 17, pushed into an office, no idea what architecture was, and it was very male dominant in my office at the time. In many offices, I have been either the first or the second person that's, Asian. I remember telling my mum, I really want to work in construction, and she was really worried for me.
During the end of our first year in sixth form, I went to Seaforth Land for an insight day, and they had the CEO of their company come speak to us about every little thing they do, and I was like, I want to do that. At the moment, I'm studying at Oxford Brookes, and my degree is going to be on planning and property development. The pipeline dream is to have my own development company, maybe get as big as Savills. We'll see.
I think we need to do more as an industry to go to different schools, different areas, tell people there are careers there. No matter what you look like or what gender you are, they're still there. We need to break that stereotype. I'm very lucky. I found it. I found my love. I found my passion very young. We help make homes. We help make communities. And to see that happening is just powerful.
Hi everyone. Hopefully I'm a bit clearer for you all now. Not quite so fuzzy. Some mild internet issues in the McClary household today. But now the debate into looking to, I guess, Nick, you talked about things can change, and I wrote down there that things must change, and then actually that things will change. So I I think that us to get into a little bit of that with the conversation. So I am going to go round and ask each of our wonderful panel members here just to introduce themselves, give a little bit of background as to, I guess, why they think that things, although we say things can change, things haven't really changed. Which I can't. So I'm going to refresh. Rim, you keep talking, and I will hopefully be back.
Thanks very much, Sam. Good morning, everybody. So my name's Rim Adam. I'm an associate director at CBRE. I've been, I joined the business as a graduate in 2014 and have very much been there ever since. So coming on, well, just over 7 years now. I have spent, I think that, the industry has certainly changed in the time that I've been around, and in a positive way. But I think to answer Sam's question around what could we be doing and why might we not be changing at a pace that suits, I think for me it's a couple of things. One is awareness. I think people are at different levels of awareness at this point in time. And if I can be so bold as to say it, but it's also fear. I think we all fear change. We're very comfortable with what we're used to, the status quo. And the fear of what change means to be. I think most of us very much understand the benefits of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the need for change and the moral obligation to do so, but often don't appreciate how that then translates into action. So I think for me, those are often the two things that really, where there's the best will in the world and intention to do better, we often get stuck. And my hope is that as we go forward, and as Nick pointed out earlier, we find ways to progress into a space of action as a collective in order to really move the dial forward.
Fantastic. Thanks, Rim. I'm glad I could hear that because it was perfect. And I really like that. I think action as a collective is really, really important. And I'm sure we'll come back to.
Oh.
Have we lost Sam?
Oh, have I gone?
I'm happy to just step in and go next while Sam's internet settles down. So my name is Roma Agrawal. I am a structural engineer. I've worked in the construction industry for 15 years. I've actually now, I hope, temporarily left the industry, and we can kind of dig into why that is a little bit more. But during my career in construction, I also ended up having this parallel career in the media. So I've written a couple of books. One is Built, which came out in 2018. And this was designed to excite people who aren't engineers, who aren't professionals in the built environment, to understand why our buildings and built environment are so incredibly important. And my children's book just came out 3 weeks ago. So at the moment, I'm actually acting as a full-time writer. I've written a radio show for Radio 4, and I'm doing lots of speaking and all kinds of random stuff that I never planned to do with my career as an engineer. In terms of my frustrations and the pace of change being really slow, I want to kind of be provocative, so I'm going to use provocative language, and I would love to hear your thoughts and feedback on that. I think one problem we have is a lot of, as I call it, EDI washing. So a lot of large corporates and companies have great taglines, they have lovely stuff on their websites, but when it actually comes down to listening to what their employees want or what the issues with their employees are, that's not there. And I have experienced that firsthand, I've heard secondhand a lot about it, where BAME professional networks are being set up within a company, and the company is shouting about that, but then what the BAME network is asking for is not being given. So there's a major problem and disconnect there. And then the second thing, again, just trying to use a bit of provocative language, is the old boys club, because the industry is run by, the people in power tend to still be from a similar demographic. I think the diversity that we're seeing is slowly kind of trickling in bottom up, but I don't think things will change unless the top-down approach changes. So Nick, it's really wonderful for me to hear that you're sitting down with this person in Birmingham to actually listen. And I think that listening, that humility, the humility in thinking that I need to learn something and I need to change things from the top is the most valuable way to actually make change quickly. So I look forward to hopefully seeing that as a result of this campaign. Thank you.
And just to add to that, I agree with both points from Rim and Roma. I feel that, change is, firsthand when you look at it, it's quite difficult with the real estate and building environment being based on historically connections. Although it's changing now a bit, a slower pace, but still there is change occurring. I feel that, coming from a South Asian background, the awareness for real estate opportunities aren't there. It's very historically become an engineer, an accountant, or a doctor, or if not, not really doing anything right. And the bragging rights goes away from your parents. Trust me, I have first-hand experience. But I feel that what would be good is, looking at and more awareness for those in specific minorities to push through more potential candidates, because being 20 years old, an apprentice surveyor for JLL and working in sort of corporate solutions, there's not a lot of people that look like me or come from a similar background as me. I feel that there is much more acceptability now and a lot more encouragement on people to voice their actions, although it's a slow process, but it's definitely occurring, which is a good sign.
I can see Bola's joined the call. I wonder if Bola wants to go
Nick,
next. Morning.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can. I was actually just going to give the floor to Bola first, rather than people have heard from me already, and I'd rather listen to him anyway. He's much more interesting than I am.
Oh, Nick. Well, thanks for that. Can everyone hear me?
You're not wrong there.
I had a bit of a moment technically, but look, guys, I'm humbled to be here. Nick, esteemed, congratulations on your journey today. It's been interesting to watch you from afar. We've got some trailblazers on this panel. I've got an interesting ally in the form of Samantha. Roma, I've got a lot of respect for. So I'm just humbled to be here more than anything else. I missed the question, but picking up on the keywords from Roma, your eloquent delivery, Nick. I think the thing I picked up, which I really resonate with, was the fact that you said we're in a really uncomfortable space. And I love that, because senior leaders all through my 3-decade career have refused to enter that space, right? And it's quite embarrassing now. I don't want to talk about the business case, even though you said it's clearly a straightforward business issue. We've researched the business case today. We've done all the stats, we've done all the metrics, we've had all the conversations. We've had a car crash of reality. And in my case, 27 years in, we're still talking about the same things we were talking about when I graduated in 1994. So what can we do differently? We've got to shake it up. We've got to allow the Rims and the Allies of the world to step up and say, look, why? What are you doing? How do you want to do it? Can we get involved? Can we help you? Can you put your ego outside of the room and have a conversation in all humility and be prepared to get it wrong without being offensive? Look, we just got to have the conversation. I haven't done anything extraordinary but tease the conversation at all different kinds of levels, all different kinds of places and spaces. I've been spat at, I've been threatened, you name it, but I'm from Hackney, so I'm resilient, right? So what I'm saying is the next gen they're not gonna accept that. They're not prepared to have that kind of experience. And frankly, they don't deserve it. They deserve better. But the point is, if the diversity pledge is an action-orientated solution, I want to see action. I really do. I call it, and I've coined this phrase from a good friend of mine. I have created a lot of intellectual masturbation and I've got people really excited, but now they want action, right? So what does that action look like? And for me, it's tying, at least in the public sector, it's tying commercial award and progress to metrics and denominators that reflect and evidence your pitches and sales and commitments in the bid. They said you're going to do all this wonderful stuff. We want to see it midterm and at the end of those deliverables of contract, right? We want to see it. And we want the examples, the rims and the alleys of the world to step up and say, actually, I was part of that process and I'm the evidence and I'm the living proof that these guys and girls were true to their word. And to your point, Nick, it's a straightforward business issue. But why aren't we doing it? Because culturally, to Roma's point about the old boys club, culturally, we've got a real issue here. Real issue. It's so structurally systemic, it's embarrassing. And again, to pick up a statement from a colleague of mine, David Sugar OBE, he said it so well. It took 400 to 500 years to build the system. It's not going to be deconstructed in 6 months. So we've all got skin in the game here. We've got skin in the game. We want action, we want commitment, we want evidence, and we want people to treat each other fairly. For the first time in the rules of conduct as a chartered surveyor, treatment and inclusiveness and diversity is in the rules of conduct. Fabulous. 15 years campaign at last, but what does it actually mean? What does it mean? What does it mean in real, practical, tangible terms? What does it mean? So this diversity pledge for me is not a pledge, it's a commitment that has to be evidenced, has to be measured, has to be monitored, and it has to be penalized. I'll just throw the cat amongst the pigeons. Thanks, Sam.
Bola, I'll pick up on that. I knew it would be better.
Pleasure. I hope that people can hear me now. No. I'm delayed, Nick, so you're nodding along, but we're going to talk. So, but I'm going to jump over you, as is usual. And I just wanted to pick up, Bola, on your point there about action, I suppose. And I was having a conversation just earlier this week around how we appear to have, like, people understand the importance of diversity, the importance of different voices if we are to have, as Nick said, profound, and I'm putting three of your words together, profound and genuine change in the industry. But what we haven't got yet is people's hearts. So, and we see this from the EG survey, you know, there's a lot of chat, but no action. So people know they need to do something, as the old, it's going to take time to deconstruct it. But what are some of the first steps that we should be taking to help with that deconstruction? Roma, I'm going to throw that back to you.
Okay.
I mean, so I'm not in the most optimistic space. Like, I have been a lot more optimistic in the past, I think, than I am at the minute. But I think that there's a fundamental issue that people at the minute can't even acknowledge there is a problem. I think that there is senior leadership that I have spoken to that just don't see that there's a problem with racism, and that can't acknowledge that. They say, oh, I've only seen 2 instances or 3 instances of racism in 30 years. But I'm afraid they're not in the position to make that judgment, not being from, being white and not wouldn't being on the receiving end of it. And I think that's really step one, is just acknowledging that your life experience is not everybody else's life experience. And I kind of repeat what I said before, which is listening to the people who are talking to you with humility and then trying to do something about it. I mean, the way I try and think about it is that I don't think there is any MD or CEO or senior leader in our industry who genuinely wants their employees to be uncomfortable, to not be giving their best, and to not be thriving. And so we just need to figure out in terms of the hearts, like I think Bola mentioned, how do we communicate that to these people who hold the power. But on the other hand, a very quick second point I'll make is that I feel like, people like me, probably Bola, I don't know if you agree with me, we're exhausted. We've been fighting this fight for a long time. And I really want to see the people that hold the power being the change. I think we've lost Sam there. Rim, did you want to share some thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you, Roma. And I think the only thing that I really wanted to add here is understanding. It really comes down to Sam's point about winning hearts in order to really impact change and galvanize people's inclination to change. It's understanding. And the harsh reality is very much that if you are a white male, a Black woman, an Asian man, you only have your lived experience to go by. I have my perspective, and that is all I have. Unless I'm willing to open myself up to and truly listen to somebody else, I'm never going to understand how they feel about life and what their lived experience is. So I think, and just using an example at CBRE, I think very much like a lot of other organizations, we took the last sort of 12 to 18 months to truly listen. And we drew in a lot of senior leadership members to actually come into the conversation and hold what we call safe space conversations. So it's this environment where people from different ethnically underrepresented groups can come together and actually share their experiences. And for those that participated, they said it was a truly eye-opening experience and just couldn't believe it. To me, it sounds a bit strange because I'm like, well, this is very normal. But again, that's my lived experience, not somebody else's. So you begin to realize there's this disconnect between understanding of the variety of experiences that we have, even in the same environment. So I think the first step is truly understanding. And it's bringing to the table individuals who aren't already participating in the conversation, because it's becoming a bit of an echo chamber. I think those amazing senior leaders that are aware, that are truly behind it, are doing what they can to drive change, but that aren't enough. Whether it's, your middle management or others who think that it's just a tick box exercise and need to be doing more aren't. But you need to almost bring them on a mandatory basis to the conversation to have this experience before they can then initiate change, and recognize that it's genuinely for the greater good. It's not an us versus them conversation. It's just, how do we allow everyone to come to this table and maximize their own, talent and experience? Because often we're having this conversation in two parts, I find as well. On the one hand, we're talking about pipeline generation and ensuring that we go out to schools and get students to study real estate or construction and then come into the industry. But then what happens when they get here? I think we can, amongst ourselves, attest to that experience, but it's, well, how do we change that culture too so that people stay? Because that's also an issue that we're facing and need to address quite urgently, really. Apologies, rattled on there, but my 2 pence.
Not at all. I hope I'm back and everyone can hear me. Yes. Hurrah! Ali, why don't you pick up on Rim's point there about retaining? I think that's a huge issue, isn't it? Because I think if we look at graduate level, actually, in terms of all forms of D&I, we're doing okay. Beyond that, pretty bad.
Yeah, I feel like I've talked to a few graduates, and I've talked to a few graduates within a few companies, and they sort of those from a BAME background, and they always explain to me, it still feels like, sort of that there is a small change occurring, although they still feel sometimes out of place when trying to have conversations, and certain peers of them, they feel a bit more confident to do that. And I feel that in the wider spectrum, there are, I know from personal experience, people leaving the real estate sector and the building environment sector because they feel that they might not fit in long-term wise, career-wise. So I feel that it's obviously a very big problem, this, but hopefully in the near future, with strong panels like this and more discussions, we can sort of look at implying a better sort of long-term career prospects.
Thanks, Ali. And so as a journalist, I always love to look at the bad stuff and say, what aren't we doing well? Because I can't help myself. But what is there anyone out there who is taking really positive, genuine action that the whole industry, and Rim, you talked about collective action, that the whole industry needs to follow? You know, this shouldn't be competitive. This should be collaborative. Bola, you've been around a little while. Seen any good action?
Oh dear.
So to speak.
oh dear. I tell you what I will do. Shout out to CBRE, because my vice chair, Justin Carty, soon to be FRICS, is my vice chair of diversity surveyors. Shout out to JLL, because Samuel May is on my board of diversity surveyors. And that wasn't by design, that was coincidence with this panel, right? But that's indicative of two firms, number one and number two worldwide, that have trailblazers, right? And I say that to say this: it needs people like the Justins and the Samuels of the world. Because I'm not inside the corporate world. I left in 1999 because I knew between 94 and 90 I didn't fit in. I was never going to make partner. It was completely obvious. I couldn't see people like me. Straight A, first class, not enough. No social capital, no network, but I'm absolutely really good at what I do. But my face didn't fit. That was 1999, and I left, never to look back again. That was 99. This is 2021. Same conversation, same criteria. Where are the trailblazers? Where are they? We need the Nick Walkleys of the world to step up now, because Nick says it as it is, right? And we need to put all of that corporate spiel and whitewash that Roma was talking about to one side. And actually, we're talking about people here, right? It's people. You know, people say, "Oh, Bolly, you've done so well. You're 11 out of 10." Let me tell you something that might shock you, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of how much of my true potential I've leveraged in my 30-year career, I'm a 4.5, 5, according to my metrics of what I'm capable of achieving, right? Society says I'm a 9, 10, according to another metric. Makes no difference to me. But I've only achieved 50% of my true potential in 30 years, right? Now, for Ali and Rim, that's got to be a 9.5, 10, maybe even 11. But that is only going to happen if we have active bystanders, we have allies that understand our why, and we have a systemic dismantling of the barriers, obvious and unobvious, to create and facilitate that thriving point that Nick was talking about. Because it's still a car crash. I've become an agony uncle. I'm getting every kind of email and conversation with mostly black and Asian professionals that are getting fired in a virtual world by email. They're not having those conversations because the virtual world has created another zone of context and conversation that everyone is completely devoid of. And they're in tears. You know, the mental health issue right now today for BAME professionals is going through the roof. Fact, right? And there are all of these things happening as a background to this conversation. So, you know, I'm not going to be polite about this. I'm sorry. I've seen it and I've heard it and I've lived it. And actually, we are not doing enough to be honest. It doesn't. All right, remember, I get your point about understanding. It starts with honesty. Just be honest. Do you have a problem? Yes. Who's going to help you fix it? Will I bring him in? Maybe. It's all conditional. We need the binary option. It needs to be yes and no, not grey. We've sat in that grey space for so long. Even in a post-George Floyd world, we're still talking about, should we? Should you? Come on. This is selling itself. And then we've got a skill shortage according to whose definition? Not my definition, because the talent pool for skills is still there. Come on. I mean, some of these low-hanging fruit solutions are just so obvious. I almost refuse to have these conversations because Roma's right. I am exhausted about constantly articulating why you should be doing something that is good for your business, let alone your staff. I mean, it's just so obvious. So for me, I'm humbled to be here because I only want to articulate what you are all saying, which is we need an environment that is completely inclusive by definition. Now, if you don't know what inclusive means, go and look in the dictionary. Start there and then apply it to your business in every possible way, on every possible metric, starting with procurement, starting with hiring, starting with firing. Do you have an inclusive firing policy? Or are you only attacking one demographic? I mean, I could go on, but Sam, this conversation for me is irritating now, because we're still seeing people leave, and we still have the leaky pipe. Like Rom said, they come in, they don't stay. Why is that? They're dropping out. They're dropping out because they're in culturally incompetent environments. That's a
well. I mean, I'm the typical example, right? I'm 38. I went on maternity leave. Then the pandemic hit. Things happened. I actually had a really good time at ACOM, so this is really no kind of shade to ACOM at all. But I left because within all of these difficult circumstances that I was suddenly faced with, I didn't know what to do with myself and with my career. And I decided to focus on stuff that is within my control. But to Sam's point about what are we doing well, I'm going to probably come back to what are we doing badly in a second. But we are seeing these awards. Okay, there are awards out there for inclusive employers. And I have a major, major problem with those awards, because who decides? I want to ask you, who decides whether a company is inclusive or not? Is it the marketing and HR teams that put these submissions in? Because the only criteria, the only thing that is reviewed when they are making these decisions, or is it the employees of that company that decide whether their employer is inclusive or not? So my personal opinion is that inclusive employer awards don't mean anything unless it is engaging the employee's lived experience. And I think organizations should be pulling those awards until they've sorted that out.
I hope we don't have one, but if we do, I'll make sure that it's judged on the right criteria, AG. Nick, you are a white man of a certain age in a senior position. What are you going to do to not to be the must change, the will change, not just the can change?
Crikey, this is a really enriching but challenging conversation as the minority in the room. I knew you. Welcome to the world is what you're all thinking. I can see it written on your faces. I guess, look, I wrote recently when I was leaving public service about the sort of 10 things I'd learned. And one of the things I'd learned really profoundly was just how complacent I in the public sector had been about these issues. It's not enough to think you're a good guy. You know, you occasionally read The Guardian and agree with it. It's not enough, and it doesn't really matter. And I think Roma and Rim's really heartfelt messages around this sort of BAME washing of corporate organisations, put everyone through an unconscious bias training programme, and the problem will go away. You know, this is not British Standards 14,001 or GDPR training where you can just add something to your inbox and it'll be okay. And there's just, I think there's something about the culture of the sector, the kind of people who are employed in it, that sort of systemic mechanical thinking is almost applied unknowingly to every single solution. It won't work. You know, and Sam and I have talked previously, I loathe organizations that sort of, you know, do a
Oops. Oh, we've lost Nick.
I think the challenge is actually about how I use my privilege and my leadership to demonstrate these serious issues to me and to the organisation. So the first thing, you know, I think we should all be saying and challenging every leader in the sector is, so where is your relationship that is a reverse mentoring relationship? Where are you getting the information that tells you how the organisation is performing? Are you, you know, you're sitting down once a week in a nice West End restaurant to talk to a bunch of men about what's going on in West End offices? Are you sitting down once a week with a colleague in a totally different social circumstance to you, a BAME colleague, to listen in the same intent way and inform your action as a result? Because I definitely believe, you know, the impact in Birmingham, me sitting in a glass box with a young, you know, a person of colour having an impassioned conversation, you could see people too. Why
I'm sure he was saying something really good
Yeah.
right there.
Apologies, I've got awful internet. I'm just making the point. Leaders have to be visible in their actions and not just their words. They must be seen to be doing things, and those things need to be supporting BAME staff, BAME entry, reverse mentoring, pitching up on panels, asking difficult questions of recruitment processes, asking difficult questions of performance metrics that are rooted in the BAME experience is where to begin. And then the other thing to say is, I think it's okay for leaders to occasionally just say, I don't know. How would I know what that is? Because it is not my experience. Yeah. Ask somebody who might know, and kind of break away from this incredibly structured hierarchical form of leadership where, you know, stuff kind of makes its way to the top as if that's where the answer is going to be. Well, it bloody obviously isn't for all sorts of reasons. But just saying so is incredibly empowering because, you know, further down their organization, there are people who are having the mirror image experience of I do know and no bugger's listening to me. And I think it's really important that you have those empowering listening conversations.
Rim, Ali, as
call it out.
Yes. Rim, Ali, as future leaders in this sector, which I hope you stay in, do you share that frustration that Nick just talked about, that people aren't listening, that, you know, there is a decision that's made up in the peak of that triangle and people aren't saying, oh, I don't know, please can I have some help? Or is there too much asking for help and not enough, you know, self-learning, I suppose?
I think to be quite positive here, actually, and I'm in quite a privileged position at CBRE because alongside my day job, I'm also the co-chair of our REACH network, which is an acronym for Race, Ethnicity and Cultural Heritage. And I'm actually pleased to say, we probably don't shout about it enough, but I think as an organisation, CBRE are trying to do two things. It's really that grassroots, community-led sort of type work via the network. We've also got a top-down approach. And the reality is if I wanted to pick up the phone, and I do, if I want to just email my MD, I can, and sit down with him and have one-to-ones. And he often comes to us for advice, for feedback on various elements, and will support anything that we put forward, generally speaking. So there is that top-down and bottom-up approach. And yes, a lot of these things take a lot of time to change. We have to consider not just a sort of in-market perspective, but also the implications across an entire global organisation. So yes, things might not go as quickly as we want them to, but I am pleased to say that the right people are having the right conversations. And it's not just one individual, it's various senior leaders that are coming to us, that are having those conversations, that are asking those questions, being vulnerable, which we probably weren't seeing as much before, but actually are willing to open up and say, we don't know the answers to everything and we need help in this journey. And I don't just mean internally, but also looking to get that expertise outside. Because a lot of the time we're trying to solve, well, I say a lot, we're always trying to solve societal problems here. And as Bola said earlier, when we can't fix it in 6 months, we need experts to help us along this way and just be comfortable with drawing in that level of expertise when it's appropriate to do so. And I feel like we are doing that. So I am... It's tough, I will admit. I do that on top of my day job. I don't just do what it is I need to do as a fee earner. It's also the extra work. So it does become a bit taxing at times, but I believe in it. So I'm happy to be a part of that. Like everything, it's all well and good to sit on the sidelines and say, I want change and rumble about the issues. But if I'm not willing to put my hat in the ring and share my own experiences, because I have, you know, it's quite unique, but also then support and be a sounding board, because if there isn't a pool of people to have those questions and sessions with, then our leaders won't also know what our experiences are. So I'm pleased to say, whilst there's a lot to do, we are absolutely having the right conversations and taking the right steps to actually make and impact that change.
Very glad to hear that. Ali?
Yeah, and just to add to that, I feel that, you know, as CBRE have their own, you know, sort diversity group. So does JLL. We call it Race for Change, and it's major work that they're doing within the corporate firm. You know, I feel that senior leaders have recognized that we need to have these discussions one-to-one basis with those who are affected by societal problems, those who feel uncomfortable in the workplace. Not saying that everyone does, but there are sometimes it's very difficult to just, you know, send an email in an anonymous, you know, sort of inbox saying, well, I don't feel comfortable like this. So now that we have a program like reverse mentoring, where I sort of mentor a senior director within the firm, and I discuss, you know, topics that they may not understand fully because they don't come from that background. And it's just work like this, and as well as raising awareness. Of course, you have the unconscious bias training that JLL has as well, and it starts the discussion. It starts the thoughts, because I've been, when it was released at the firm, there was a lot of people talking about it, which is good, which is a step. Although slow, but still, the reverse mentoring and progression for people to understanding different backgrounds is great.
Thank you. So we have about 6 minutes left, I think, and what I didn't say as I was glitching earlier was, if anyone has any questions that they want to ask, please do use the comment section. So we've got a little bit of time if you want to hastily type into there. But while you do that, a sort of final question from me is, you know, the Firm Foundations is all about action. So what is the one thing that everyone who is watching today can do today to make a difference? Just one thing that we can all do. Bola, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, one thing. Pray. Pray that we all get on and have those difficult conversations, because those conversations are going to create chaos. We need to be prayerful. It might sound wild and west, but actually, I've got faith. One of the things that's kept me focused on my journey through the mines and the trapdoors is faith. I just have faith in human beings that ultimately you're going to get it right. Does it take a generation? It's taken a generation to stand still. But I think if we pray and be prayerful and respectful, who knows what can happen? I've challenged RICS to 30 years material change, and they bought it. So I'm talking 2050, 2055, Rim, Ali, bear that in mind, 2050, material change, whatever that looks like. But I think I've done my bit. But pray, we must pray.
Pray and be respectful. Well up for that. Nick?
Look, I think everybody should leave the room, go back to their workplaces, and have the uncomfortable conversation with a colleague that you know. Most leaders know there are uncomfortable individuals, people of colour, young women. Connect, have what's ailing you, what's the point of turning up if this isn't working, how do we make it work conversation, because it will scare the living bejesus out of the other person. But I tell you, for a leader, it's even more frightening. And if you're not prepared to do that, then we're not going to change anything, are we? This thing just festers and grows and continues as before. And if you don't think you've got the time for it, just be late for dinner or cancel that bloody golf lesson or whatever it is, because this is more important.
Yeah, priority number one. Thank you, Nick. Roma?
I'm going to ask every single attendee that's here today to write 3 things down. So can you please write down your 2 points of privilege, and then can you write down 1 point of disadvantage? So all of us have them. To share mine, my points of disadvantage would be being a brown woman, for example. My points of privilege would be that I've grown up in a middle-class family and never had to worry about money. So I don't understand what it's like to not have money. And my second point of privilege will be that I got the best possible education that I could get. So I never struggled. I was never underestimated, or I was always encouraged to use my intellect and my abilities. So start with that, and then do the things that Nick and Bola said.
That is really practical and really helpful. Thank you, Roma. Ali.
I think it's just to have those open discussions and to openly talk about your experiences, no matter the background you come from, and also to look at raising awareness for the next generation. Look at going into volunteering your time to do work experience at school to sixth form students or college students to understand, to teach them about your career, teach them about the real estate and building environment sector. And I feel that that will have ripple effects in the industry.
Thank you very much. Rim.
I think Ali I'm going to steal the same and go along the same lines there. I think for me, it's probably truly practicing vulnerability. I think I'm just been thinking about it for a while actually, but today's discussion and listening to Bola, I think, and Roma, and just how long it's taken to get us to where we are today. I think one thing that I'm committing to and would absolutely urge everybody else is just to be a bit more vulnerable and open about our experiences. I think by my very nature, I'm a pretty private person, so don't share a huge amount. As much as I love everything here, it's probably time to open up so that people truly get a true representation of what life is really like, to help with that understanding piece.
Fantastic, thank you. I think there's huge power in vulnerability. We had our Future Female Leaders event just last week, and one of the talks was about how, as a manager, being vulnerable, being human, is really powerful and creates such positive change. And I really like that. And so, we are here today to talk about the Firm Foundations platform. How can we use that? How can the real estate sector use the Firm Foundations platform to create change? We're asking for 100 companies to sign up. What do they need to do to deliver and really bring about change? Nick.
Look, the really, really important thing here is the trick's in the title. The convening power of the mayor gives us both the opportunity to draw influence together, but then to use that to have the sorts of challenging conversations that we've been talking about here. That this can't just be, sign the check, thank you very much, another thing to put on the bottom of our emails alongside the 40 other things that we're allegedly committed to. I think the real opportunity is in the convening of that leadership to have some of the challenging conversations that we've been having here, rather than pretending job done when you've signed up and you've got a few apprentices. It's about persisting with bringing people together and continuing to have that really difficult conversation. So I shall be leaving here. I'm heading to Manchester. Other cities are available to meet with my global CEO, and I will just be asking some really challenging questions based upon, I think, Roma's contributions and some of those experiences. We've really, really got to be forcing that. And I suppose the other thing is, it's just a way for me to identify talent and recruit it. Am I allowed to say that?
You have now. Roma, for you, how do you want to see the Firm Foundations platform used?
I think the accountability piece is super important. And Bola mentioned being penalized. And if I may say, Firm Foundations should be kicking some ass if they find that the firms aren't, truly committing and changing what they are committing to change. It's very easy to put words down on paper. It's very easy to say we're going to do certain things. There needs to be accountability. So that's what I'll be hoping.
Thank you. And Rim, what are you going to be asking from CBRE to do through the Firm Foundations platform?
I think the wonderful thing about the platform is that it creates a community, and it's actually leveraging that community, because we're not facing different problems here. We're all trying to tackle the exact same thing, and there's no point trying to reinvent the wheel 100 times over. So it's really leveraging the relationships, building true partnerships, so we can actually just force that change at a quicker pace.
Lovely, thank you. Ali?
I'm afraid I won't have to steal sort of Rim's idea this time, but I feel like the community being able to cooperate and discuss ideas together will definitely, push through the change a lot quicker. And it's something that I look forward to and to support over the next decade or so.
Thank you very much. Bola, final word. You're on mute, my friend.
Apologies. I said, thanks, Sam. I'm going to keep it simple. I want to see the Mayor's Fund and the Diversity Pledge be tied directly to procurement, because that's the only way it's going to hurt. And if you don't perform morally, then commercially, you'll be penalized, right? So the direct correlation between action, inaction, procurement, success is measurable. I'm a quantity surveyor, so you've got to find a way to measure it. That's how we do it. We tie this pledge to procurement, and bingo, amazing things will happen, or not for that matter.
Make it hurt and good things will happen.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much for a really wonderful discussion. I apologise profusely for me being in and out, but you don't need me, and hopefully everyone heard the very fantastic conversation from the panel today. Thank you so much. This is just the start. You are going to be pestered by everyone here on this chat, certainly by me through the pages of EG. That's never going to stop, and this is all about action. So let's take it. I'm going to hand back over, I hope, to Kirsty, who's going to close us off and tell you exactly what you need to do.
Thank you very much indeed, Sam, and very well chaired. Really enjoyed that discussion. Now, it is really now about action. It's not about us and the Mayor's Fund for London, it is about you. You have heard the frustration from the panellists today. You have heard the changes possible, and you've also heard a huge amount of commitment. You've had a challenge from Nick to go back and have the difficult conversations back at the office. And this is now about doing something. Us at the Mayor's Fund for London, we are asking more organisations to sign up as founding partners of this campaign. We already have about 20 of those around the table. They include big developers, they include housing associations, small architecture practices, surveyors, the whole entire gamut of the built environment world. So if you're interested in taking a leadership position with us, do get in contact. But we're also looking for at least 100 organisations in this sector to sign up to the Diversity Pledge by a year's time. The Diversity Pledge commits you to a set of principles, actions about how you recruit and support your staff from diverse backgrounds, but also commits you to one additional action. We're not telling you what that action is, but we do want to make sure that you do something new, and we're going to be coming back to find out whether in fact you have done it. Looking ahead, we're going to have leadership events, we're going to do practitioner events. This is the start of a conversation with us. So I hope you found today inspiring. I hope that the commitment I know you already had has been strengthened by this. And we will be following up as ever with an email asking you to get involved. So thank you very much indeed, everyone, and hope you've enjoyed it.